globally.
Sanctions have always been used as a weapon against any country or leader that does not ascribe or do not fit the United States of America's worldview. I don't know if any of you remember this, but when in the year 2000, Robert Mugabe, the then president of Zimbabwe, decided to introduce land reforms to his country in order to appropriate land more equally amongst its mixed population of white and black farmers. Prior to the year 2000, 70% of viable agricultural land in Zimbabwe was owned and controlled by less than 1% of the population of Zimbabwe, which was the white farmers. And after Robert Mugabe enacted that law, he redistributed that land. After the redistribution of the land, the United States and Britain imposed crippling sanctions on Zimbabwe, which resulted in the Zimbabwean currency losing its value overnight and the Zimbabwean economy collapsed. Then, when the war in Ukraine broke out, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the United States and the European Union and all Western nations imposed heavy sanctions on the Russian government, which led to the freezing of $300 billion of Russian assets in Europe and America. Thanks to America, Europe made a disastrous decision to stop buying Russian gas, all in a bid to block all avenues in which Russia can use to earn foreign exchange. Everybody thought that the Russian economy was going to tank over after that, but Russia decided to improvise and started seeking markets elsewhere. Russia started seeking markets in the global south. Russia and China strengthened their alliance, and India became a leading importer of Russian oil and gas. And then if we move westwards towards South America, we all know that Venezuela has been under continuous US sanctions since the year 2002. Every part of the Venezuelan economy has been sanctioned by the United States of America. The oil and gas industry in Venezuela is under sanctions. Their gold industry is under sanctions. Their financial services are under sanctions, and even the government of Venezuela itself is under heavy US sanctions. In fact, the United States of America even issued a $15 million reward for the arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The Venezuelan economy is really struggling, and if not for China, that has consistently been buying Venezuelan oil and gas and also been trading with Venezuela, Venezuela would probably have gone in the direction of Zimbabwe before Zimbabwean recovery. Oh, I know what you're thinking. You probably want to know, how can a country survive US sanctions? And to be honest with you, it's not as hard as you think it is. In fact, China and Russia have been doing it, and the way to do it is to develop parallel global payment systems that boycott the Western-dominated SWIFT payment system. Russia has SPFS and China has CIPS. And these payment systems that have been developed by Russia and China are a way to accelerate de-dollarization. Another way to boycott Western sanctions is to form regional trading blocs, kind of like BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa now has over a dozen countries that have joined from Asia, Latin America, including African countries. I believe Nigeria, my home country, is actually a partner country of BRICS. These are systems and organizations and trading organizations that actually challenge Western dominance. And as long as Western dominance of global finance can be challenged, it means that it's going to be harder and harder for Western nations to bully global South nations in the future. The key word here is de-dollarization. And how do you accelerate de-dollarization? You can do that by promoting bilateral trade in local currencies, kind of like what China is doing with a lot of countries around the world, whereby they do currency exchanges. For instance, here in Nigeria, we can now trade directly with our naira in exchange for Chinese yuan and vice versa. It has been happening in other countries in Africa and across the world as well. The world is really changing and exciting things are happening at the moment. And the reality of the matter is that the era of US sanctions or Western sanctions is actually coming to an end. It is actually coming to a close. It just wants to close with a bang because alternatives have already been built and the world is shifting away from the West. African countries, for instance, now have choices. They can say no and actually get away with it. And after what happened in Palestine with Israel's war in Gaza, the world has had no choice but to face Western duplicity and hypocrisy. So, I mean, if Russia can be sanctioned heavily for invading Ukraine, where are the sanctions against Israel for killing 70,000 or more Palestinians in what the United Nations has called a genocide? So the world has finally woken up and the curtain is actually really about to close on Western dominance on our world. We are all living in very exciting times. We are living at a time when the world is shifting. The Earth's axis is tilting by 20 degrees or 10 degrees or whatever it is that geographers used to say about when the Sahara used to be green. I know I'm talking about a lot of nonsense right now, but I said all this to say this. We are beginning to witness the dawn of a new era. The time of China has come and the time of the United States has ended. And what happens when an empire is about to fall? It wages war. So we might see a lot more war coming from America, but that doesn't mean that America is in control. What comes after war? Peace. And which country spreads peace and friendship all around the world? China. There you have it.